Hi, welcome to this week's dynamic practice. I call it the longest millimeter, and this is the strength edition. Essentially, we'll be moving body parts a millimeter, typically a millimeter off the floor, and that requires us to engage and stabilize in ways that we would not need to otherwise. So I see the longest millimeter technique as small moves, big results. I hope you find that. We're going to take 2 blocks as an option today. So if you just have 1 block, that's fine. You can do most of the poses, maybe even all of them. 2 blocks will help with one specific posture, a lunge. Have a strap as well. And if you have some wall space, we'll be working with either headstand preparation work or a couple of headstand practices. So if you use a wall for a headstand, feel free to clear some wall space and have that at the ready. So let's get started. Feel free to lie on the back. So you're lying face up and start taking some deeper inhales and exhales. Breathe into belly and you continue inhaling into your heart space. So inhale, it's like from the bottom of the torso up, and exhale from the top down. And find a comfortable, intuitive rhythm of your breathing. Check in, feel the feet flat on the floor. Arms are relaxed by your sides. And then from here, you're going to gently press your shoulder blades into the floor. So you squeeze your shoulder blades toward one another, and then you add some weight into the shoulders. And from here, mind's eye to feet now, also press your feet into the floor and change nothing else but lift your sacrum, your hip bone, a millimeter off the floor. So, I mean, I'm not too concerned about being exact on the millimeter, but it's not like a full bridge. So it's just a tiny bit off the floor. And see how much more your body has to work with just that millimeter. And then you can place your hips on the floor again. Notice more body parts can relax. Okay, very good. From here, draw your navel and press your low back into the floor. And now we're going to lift one foot just a millimeter off the floor. And you feel how much more work is here. Sustain that for another breath or two. Okay. And that foot comes down, and same thing on the other side. Other foot lifts just a millimeter. So your navel's drawn in, your low back's pressing into the floor. And the foot is just the tiniest bit off the floor. Keep on breathing, full abdominal thoracic breath. So breathe from the bottom of your torso up. Exhale from the top of the torso down. You can place that foot on the floor. Very good. And then from here, right ankle on top of left thigh. You can hug the whole thing in and then reach through your legs and either hold your left hamstring, or if you'd like to, you can hold your left shin to start to open up outer hip. So you can hug the ensemble in as much as you'd like. A few breaths into low back. Take a deep breath in and exhale from there. You release, left foot on the floor, right foot on the floor, and then let's switch sides. So you take your other foot across, reach through and either hold your right hamstring or you can hold your right shin, and you're going to draw the whole ensemble in. So an initial release for left outer thigh, outer hip, through low back. Breathe into this. And another few breaths here. Okay, great. And then from there you release, both feet on the floor, and then shift your hips to the right. So hips over to the right side of the mat, and then draw your right knee in, other leg extends forward, and let's take this over for a twist. So you're going to hold your knee over. So first big twist of the practice. And as your knee is coming across to the left, the down foot, press that heel out another millimeter. So you're getting some length through your left leg. You might notice some effects throughout the spine. You might want to alternate between pressing your heel out and relaxing your leg, and seeing if there's difference not only in the leg, but also see if you can feel any tensions change in, like stretches, change throughout the torso. Deep breath from bottom to top, and exhale from top to bottom, come back to center. All right, notice the after effects there. And from here, we'll try it on the other side. Shift your hips to the left. Left knee draws in, other leg extends forward. And your bent knee, you're going to take your left knee across the midline, over toward the floor on the right. You can hold that leg there. And as you inhale, press the bottom heel forward just a millimeter. That straightens out the leg rather far. And see if that had any effect through the spine, through any sensation of stretch throughout internal organs or the muscles that wrap around your torso. You can alternate between extending your leg, activating it, and relaxing. And so the question is, does that have any effect through hips, perhaps, low back, maybe even the spine of your ribs or the ribs themselves? Another few breaths here. Breathe from the bottom to the top. And exhale, you release, come out of that. Sacrum in the middle, feet flat on the floor, pause. All right, and find your strap. We're going to take the strap around your right foot, and your right leg's going to be up in the air. So loop the strap around your big toe and little toe mound. So big toe, little toe mound, and what that will allow you to do is, so as you press your heel up, you can open your toes, and you can use the strap to bring your toes a little closer to the ground. So we're highlighting the ankle work, the flexion of the ankle. So legs straight. The tendency is for the knee to bend in order for people to take their legs over the airspace. And what I encourage you to do is to straighten the leg fully, even if you have to take it away from your navel, and then press your heel up at just a millimeter. That small move will have a big effect down the back of the leg. Okay? So leg nice and straight, press your heel up. We'll pause here for another few breaths. Left leg can extend forward, press that heel forward. Left heel forward, right heel up. So now we have the leg straight, your heel's pressing up maybe another millimeter. And then from there, keep your right hip heavy for an IT band stretch, outer leg stretch. We're going to take your top leg over to the left just a little bit. Doesn't have to be far. This might be more than a millimeter. This might be the exception here. So it might go over an inch or two, but a little goes a long way. And you keep on pressing your heel up, quads engaged, heel up, toes come down. And you press your right hip down as your heel lifts. So right hip down, heel up. And there's 2 more breaths here. Take a big inhale, big exhale. Breath in. Keep your legs straight. We're going to bring it back to where we started. Hold the strap with just your right hand, and then bring your leg out to the right for the second version of Supta Pada 2. I always get my right elbow down to the floor. Kind of acts like a kickstand, so I can try to keep my left hip down now as my right heel presses out. Feel the activity in your feet, activity in your legs, heels press out, and that little movement can have big effects down your legs. Breathe into your lower abdomen from the bottom to the top as you inhale. And exhale from the top down. And a couple more deep breaths here. right, great. And then you can bring your leg back up, let it go. Lower your right leg to the floor. Okay, nice. And let's try that on the other side. So please take your left leg up in the air. Your strap is around your big toe mound and little toe mound. And if this leg is tighter or looser, you could adjust the loop in your strap. Just like on the first side, this side, the tendency for a lot of people is for the knee to bend so they can draw their leg over their airspace. And I don't know who taught them that, but this kind of like breaks the line in the back and winds up pulling at the hamstring origin. So I would say take the thigh back a little bit and extend your leg fully. So now my quad's working. And then any additional stretch in the back of your leg, get it by pressing your heel up and bringing your toes down toward the floor. So that's solid structure in the back of the legs. We're not pulling any one point more than the other necessarily. Especially the hamstring origins, people tend to get some neuropathy here if they're focusing on just the upper hamstring. So this gets the entire back of the leg. Press the heel up, toes come down. Quads nice and engaged. Heel up 1 millimeter. Right heel forward 1 millimeter. And let's pause here, another couple of breaths. Let the stretch soak in a little bit. Take deep inhales, breathe from the bottom to the top. Exhale from the top to the bottom. Okay, so keep your leg nice and straight, keep your heel ascending and left hip descending. Keep your left hip down and take your top leg over just a little bit. Again, might be more than 1 millimeter, but it doesn't have to be a lot. For most people, if they go just over 1 inch or 2, you're going to get a lot more stretch down the outside of your leg. Keep all that other structure in place as you just take the leg over. And it's that one little move that you might get outer hamstring a lot more, IT band, and possibly the muscles that wrap around your outer hip. Keep on breathing. As your top heel presses up another millimeter, press your bottom heel out another millimeter. Okay, great. So this is the IT band variation of Supta 1. We're going to come back to where we started and continue out to our left side. So the leg's going to come out to the left. Hold the strap with just your left hand. You can get your elbow down. And as you press your heel to the left, roll your belly to the right in an attempt to keep your right hip down. Heels press out in their respective directions and breathe in the torso from the bottom to the top. Top to bottom. And a few more breaths here, working on these small incremental movements, quads engaged, heels press out, potentially 1 more millimeter. All right, take a deep breath in. Okay, great. And then you bring the leg back upright. Inhale here. And then exhale, you can remove the strap. Both legs extend along the floor. All right, and press your heels forward as you inhale. Point your toes forward strongly as you exhale. And do that twice more. Inhale, heels forward, open your toes. Exhale, toes forward and heel back. Do that one more time. Inhale, heels forward, toes back. Exhale, toes forward, heels back. And then from there, release. And let's come up to hands and knees. Okay, and for the sequence, either toes curled under or toes point back. The hands and knees sequence, you can do either. So let's just start with some cat-cow. As you inhale, you're going to arch your back, look up toward the ceiling, draw your shoulder blades in. And as you exhale, the glutes drop down, navel lifts, and you can tuck your chin. And do that 3 more times. Take a deep breath in. Exhale. So this is a lot of spinal movement. So this is also hip and shoulder movement, but the main movement is spinal. You're coming into extension on inhale and flexion on exhale. Okay. So for this next move, the spine, bring your spine to a neutral position. And for the next move, the spine stays where it is, and it's like there's a pencil from your heart to the floor, and you're drawing a circle on the floor. So you see how this is distinct from cat and cow. And now our hips and our shoulders are moving, but the spine itself is being carried around in space, but it's not extending and flexing like it was in cat-cow. Okay? So because the spine remains neutral, you can draw your lumbar spine in a little bit, draw your navel in a little bit, lift the ribs up a little bit to support your spine. Go in the other direction. And notice the weight transfer across hands. So especially as you come forward, there's more weight in your hands. And as you go from one side to the other, there's more weight in one hand than the other hand. Okay. Great. Elbows stay unlocked. Biceps engage. And you come back to center. Curl your toes under. You can sit back toward the heels. And if you need a little bit of a break for the hands, you can make some wrist circles. Okay. And if toes curled under doesn't work, you can also point your toes back. So this is really just a break for the wrists. And then after a couple of wrist circles in one direction, wrist circles in the other direction, we're going to take the same move. Hands pressed down, biceps engaged, elbows have to remain unlocked for the safety of your elbow. And it's that same circle, but what we're going to do is lift our knees up just a millimeter. And now all of a sudden that's going to cantilever a lot of weight into the arms. So try that out. Lift your knees just a millimeter and draw a carefully scripted circle on the floor. Of course, you almost can't help but notice the weight transfer into your arms as you come forward. Go in the other direction. And notice the weight transfer from one hand to the other. And the knees, they might move a little bit, but they're not moving with this one too much. So the knees more or less stay hovering over the space that they're about to land on. So try that another time or two. Okay, very nice. And then you land. All right, if you need to take a wrist break, again, go ahead. Another direction. Okay, great. And then so from hands and knees, option number one is you're going to send one leg back, opposite arm forward. Okay, so bottom ribs draw in. Whatever's left on the ground, you press into the floor. Take a deep breath in, and then bring all four on the floor. And we'll try the other pairing. Arm forward, opposite leg back. Bottom ribs draw up a little bit. So security in the spine. Okay, great. And so that's option number one. You can do that. It's opposite arm and leg. What we're going to try is option number two. You're going to transfer your weight over to one side. And you're going to extend your other leg back. Okay, so right now my left leg is going back. And I'm going to try to reach my right arm forward. And this is option number two. So same side. It's a little more of a balance practice. Drive your heel back as best you can. Heel back another millimeter. And then see if you can lift your back thigh up a millimeter. And there's two more breaths here. Take a big inhale. Big exhale. And breath in. Okay, and then bring all four on the floor. All right, try that on the other side. So you're going to shift your body weight over to the other side. So once all that weight's over on the one side, you press your heel back. Okay, You can focus on that work there. And if you want to, you can reach the same side arm forward. So now it's same side, really dorsal from the heel all the way up to the shoulders. Press your heel back a millimeter and lift your back thigh up a millimeter. And we're doing that without going into spinal extension. So it winds up being a hip and lower back practice. Good, take a deep breath in. Okay, great. And hand on the floor, feet on the floor. Great. Take a break. Take a wrist bend, one direction, other direction. This next one, you may want to use a block for this. What we're going to do, you're going to take your left leg back and sit on the block on your right side. So now the legs are going in further directions. Okay? And from here, you curl your back toes under and press your heel back. Now, if this doesn't feel good for the knee or the hip or just something's not going right, go back to what we did just before, where you transfer your weight to one side, and it's the same side arm and leg goes back. This is basically the same practice, but we're lowering down. So now our hips are going in further directions. So I'm gonna sit on the block. I have my weight transferred to the right side, which means I'm gonna try to lift my left arm up and forward, and just a millimeter if you can, you press your back heel back and see if you can lift your back leg off the floor. So it's a big millimeter in the back. Drive your heel back, lift your thigh up to lift your foot up so you're not bending knee. Great, and then you come down to the floor, you come out of that. All right, very nice. Let's try that on the other side. You're gonna take the block. On the left, that means you can send your right leg back. Okay, so this is the setup. Again, if this doesn't work for knee or hip, go back to hands and knees and try same side arm and leg, pressing back. All right, so from here, now most of my weight's on my left side, whichever side you're doing is good. You're gonna reach one arm forward. Now the leg that's behind you, press that heel back a millimeter, and then see if you can lift from the thigh to lift the foot. And it's gonna come up perhaps just a millimeter or two. Drive the heel back. So keep your back leg completely straight, like a laser beam. And there's 2 more breaths here. Take a big inhale, big exhale. And one last time, breathe in. Okay, great. And you come out of that. Get rid of the block if you were using it. Curl your toes under and lift back into a downward facing dog. All right, so a couple breaths here, and then we'll be off our hands for a while. Lift your lift your heels, bend your knees, lift your sitting bones up another millimeter, and then keep your sitting bones up and then drive your heels back. And 3 more breaths here in downward facing dog. Take a deep breath in, exhale, breath in, exhale. One last time. Okay, great, and then bend your knees. You can come up to standing. All right, so we're up. Find your block. And I'm gonna mirror you now, so I'm gonna take my left toes forward, but take your right toes forward. We're prepping for triangle, and I would like you, if you can, to have your hand on the block. So if you can't get far enough down to have your hand on the block at the highest level, you can keep it here. It might be a little bit more difficult to, spoiler alert, we're gonna try to lift our front heel up just a millimeter, okay? The hand could help assist that, especially from a balance perspective, okay? So your right hip sliding underneath the left, hand goes to block, and the hand can help this one out a little bit. Okay, top arm, do whatever you want, but the focus is gonna be on your front foot. So you're gonna press the front foot through the floor. And from here, you're gonna try to press the big toe, little toe mounds down and lift your front heel just a millimeter. Now, if you need to bend your front knee a little bit, go ahead and do that, but try to keep your leg as straight as possible. You're gonna feel a strong contraction in your front calf, your front soleus, Okay, so you're lifting up, 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 up. All right, very good. If you are getting a cramp, like I do sometimes on this one, you go opposite. You press your heel down, lift your toes up. Otherwise, another couple breaths, trying to press the big toe mound down and lift your heel up just a millimeter. And one last time here, take a deep breath in. Okay, press your heel down. You're going to bring your block with you to come all the way up. Bend your knees. Let's switch sides. Okay, so now your left toes are pointing to the left. Block down. You're going to cut your front hip underneath your back hip and take your hand to the thigh. If you can take the hand to the block without collapsing, try that one out. Okay, top hand, wherever you want, back foot, driving down, all that's fine and good. The focus is going to be on the front foot, where you can look at your front foot. Press your big toe, little toe mound down. It's like you're trying to drive it through the floor to lift your front heel up just a millimeter. Just a millimeter. Yeah, I'm going to get a cramp over here too. So if you get a cramp, you lift your foot. Otherwise, big toe mound down. And I'm finally over the cramp so I can lift my heel. And I'm pausing there, another couple breaths. So it's a strong engagement of calf, soleus. Another couple breaths here. Take a big inhale. Take a big exhale. One last time, breath in. Okay, great. And then the whole foot comes down. Bring your block with you. You're going to come up. All right, let's go back to the first side. Longer stance for a side angle practice. This is another one where the front hand has to be on the block. And just so you know where we're going, let me demonstrate this really quickly. We're going to take the hand down, I'm going to take it at the top level. We're going to pin the leg into the arm, and then we're going to try to lift the front foot. Okay? So it's going to be a lot of work for the hips, especially outer hips. Let's get into it. Take a warrior two. You're going to send your right knee forward. Okay, warrior two. Back leg stays on the ground, of course front foot's on the floor. And then from here you're going to tilt over, take your hand to the block. I would suggest take it up to the top level. And the block is to the outside of your right leg. So from here, you're now going to press your leg into your arm. And that's going to get your outer hip working. Hopefully everyone feels that. Okay. From here, right hand, drive that block through the floor, and you're going to squeeze your right hip and try to slide your thigh up your leg, just to lift your foot a millimeter off the floor. A few breaths here. Keep on pressing into the arm as well. Okay, great. And then that foot comes down to the floor. Come all the way back up. Bend your knees. Switch sides. Okay. And then from here, you're going to send your left knee over left ankle. Okay, so this is like a warrior two style position. Okay. Back leg nice and strong. Drive that into the floor, of course. And then you're going to take your block to the outside of your foot, maybe behind it a little. All right, so what's your left thigh doing? The tendency is for the thigh to drop inward on a lot of people. Press your thigh into your arm instead. And it helps get your left outer hip working for you. So that engagement's happening. Now from here, I'm going to drive my left hand into the block, into the floor. Press it down, press it down, press it down. And then as you inhale, huge inhale here, as you exhale, lift the foot. And see if you can continue breathing, full thoracic abdominal breath. Foot up a millimeter, keep on pressing thigh into arm. Okay, great. And then that foot comes down. Put the block out to the side. Come up, and let's take a little bit of a hip break in a wide leg forward fold. So your toes are now going to come in a little, pubic bone back, heart forward, and we'll lean forward for a calf stretch, hamstring stretch. And if you'd like to, your hands can come back a little bit. So palms down, hands come back. And then if you bend your elbows back, you'll also round your spine. So it's like you're sending your elbows through your legs. Your hands stay where they are. So the wrists are almost like a hinge point for your elbows to travel back. And when you send your elbows back, typically the hips will go back with. So I'd like you to notice that. And then from here, keep your elbows back where they are. So you press your hands into the floor. And then shift your hips forward just a millimeter or two. For most people, that brings the stretch together on the back body. So it's elbows through legs, and then without falling forward, your hips shift forward just a tiny amount. And several breaths here. Okay, great. And then you can take your hands forward a little bit, bend your knees, heel toe yourself closer together, and then drive your feet through the floor, come all the way back up to standing. All right, take a Tadasana for a moment. Drive your feet down, lift your lungs up. So all this millimeter work, my hope is it gets everything activated, it's working for you, and it feels solid. So from your Tadasana, you're going to press your toes down, which means we're now going to transfer our weight into our toes. And press your toes down. See if you can lift your heels up just a millimeter. Okay, so heels might be just floating just off the floor. And there's a lot more work in the back of the legs. And then from here, bring your heels down. And this is what, just take cautions, this is, at least for me, this is nearly impossible. But you're gonna take so just make sure you're not gonna fall back. But you're gonna take the weight into your heels, and then you engage the front of your shins. See if you can lift your big toe, little toe mound. So the heels are on the floor, front of the feet are up. Full abdominal thoracic breathing. Take a deep breath in and exhale. The whole perimeter of the feet are on the floor. Very nice. Okay, so this is where you could use 2 blocks if you have them. You're going to put them at the top 2 corners of the mat. And your right foot is forward, your left foot's going to go back, you're going to come into a lunge. Okay. So, either hands on the floor, hands on a block, like this, or hands on both blocks. And you're going to keep your back leg straight. Inhale, here you lift your hips up. Exhale, keep your back leg straight as you press your hips down. And do this 4 more times. Take a deep breath in as you lift your hips. Exhale as you press down. As you're doing this, the higher your hips lift, press your big toe mound down, it gets more and more difficult, and you're going to feel the calf and the soleus work for that. Okay, so from here, you're going to take your hips about the mid spot, right? Like we went as high as we could, we went as low as we could. Now the hips are somewhere in the middle. If your hands are on the ground, you're going to take your fingertips. And the idea here is to add more and more weight into your hands like you're doing a plank and try to lift your front foot up. Now, I can't do it with my hands on the ground. It's almost impossible. So that's why if you have the props, you'll have a little more luck lifting the front foot. Okay? But even if your hands are on the ground, trying that is working your psoas so much. So see if you can lift the foot. And exhale, I'll bring it back down. Very good. And from here, you can come back up to standing and pause into Tadasana. So that was a lot of work for right psoas. And we'll check that out on the other side. So please step your right foot back this time. Okay, and we'll come either hands to the floor. Okay, if there's no blocks, hands on the floor. 1 block, which means your right hand's on the floor for this first move. or 2 blocks, both hands. And as you inhale, lift your hips up as high as you can. And then as you exhale, keep your back leg straight as you press your hips down toward the floor. And go back and forth like this several times with full abdominal thoracic breathing. So I inhale from the bottom of the torso on up, exhale on down. And notice that as you lift your hip, press the front foot, big toe mound down, you can feel your calf, soleus, working for you. All the muscles that flex the foot, that plantar flex the foot. Okay, great. So the hips went as high as possible, as low as possible. Find a place halfway in between. And if you don't have 2 blocks, just try 0 blocks. Press your hands down. Press, 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 press. You can round your spine a little bit like we did in cat-cow, right? This is the cat. And then just focus on trying to lift the front foot off the floor. All right, if you have blocks, you can gain some elevation here. You lift the front foot up. Pause, breathe a lot as you're lifting. Okay, great. And then foot down from here, again, downward facing dog. You'll step both legs back. Bend your knees, lift your sitting bones up another millimeter, straighten legs, and then press your heels back. All right, and several more breaths here. Okay, so a lot of work on the hips. There is still more. But use this time to get a nice long cohesive stretch from sitting bones all the way to heel. So it doesn't feel like we're pulling just at the origin spot, your sitting bones, the origin spot of your hamstrings. Okay, great. And then from here, you can come down to hands and knees. Now let's come around to seated. All right, so we're in Dandasana. All right, tendency is to relax the low back, so like back and down for schlump. So you're gonna slide your sitting bones back, lift your lungs up. All right, and from here, you press your heels forward. If you want to bring your hands behind you, that's fine. We're still gonna work on the psoas through a couple boat options. But from here, you still lift your lungs, lifting your lungs, and change nothing else about this pose, but lift one leg up a millimeter, hold it there. So it's just a millimeter, but all of a sudden quad's working over time, psoas is working over time. You're gonna wanna schlump. See if you can keep it up. So we wind up using psoas and quad. And one last time here, take a deep breath in. Okay, and then that heel comes down a millimeter, right to the floor. Keep on lifting your lungs. Keep the posture looking as it does, and lift your other heel a millimeter. So lungs are lifting. Still with the anterior tilt in hips. And notice the work in quad. Notice the work in the psoas. Even though this is structure and stability, see if you can breathe into it. So that's where the ease is. This is stabilizing. This is ease in good space. So breathe into your thoracic abdominal space. Breathe in the belly from the bottom up. Breathe from the top down. And bring that foot to the floor. Okay, very nice. So we're going to do one of two things. Your left foot is going to come underneath your right leg like this. So it's more like a cross-legged seat. Or if it's available, and let me demonstrate this. Let me turn around so I can demonstrate this. Your left foot's either going to come underneath, or if it feels okay for your knee, you point your toes back and you sit like this. Okay? So it's either sort of like a virasana or a sukhasana. Okay? So I'll choose this one to demonstrate. And then from here, and you can use the strap if you'd like, but you're going to take your foot up in the air like this. And this is called heron. So your right leg's up in the air. You can use the strap if you'd like. up. You're gonna arch your back a little bit, lift your lungs. Now, I don't care how high this leg is, I only hope you're getting a decent stretch here, especially if you're in Virasana. Over here, make sure all joints are okay. Over on your left leg. Okay, so from here what we're going to do, shoulder blades away from your ears, lift your lungs. And then if you can, see if you can keep your leg where it is and just let it go for a moment. So you're lifting up, lifting up, lifting up, lifting up, lifting up. Okay, very good. Take a deep breath in. Okay, and then lower that leg. Extract your other leg. So you're in Dandasana. I'll turn around again. So you're in Dandasana. Hands behind you. Keep the pose as is. Lift one heel up. Feel that engagement in psoas. Lift your other leg up a millimeter. Feel the engagement in psoas. Great. And let's try that on the other side. So again, the two options for Heron, Kranchasana. Your right leg, it's in like a cross-legged position. You're going to sweep it underneath your left foot or your left leg. Or your right foot is to the outside of your shin, outside of your hip, and you're in a Virasana style posture. Okay, so strap around foot if you'd like. And now you're going to take your left leg up. Okay, so we're here in Heron pose. Feel the structure take shape. So like, especially on this side, second side, since you already know where we're going, it's almost like you're trying to lift your foot out of the strap to begin with. And that should get your left quad and your left psoas to work. So you're either holding it with the strap or holding it with your feet. Okay? Inhale, you're lengthening. Inhale, you're lengthening. Lifting up. Exhale from here. See if you can keep your leg where it is and let go. So you freeze-framed the body, but you're breathing a lot. Inhale. Big exhale. Breathe in. Big exhale. And twice more. Breath in. Exhale. And one last time. Breathe in. Okay, great. And then exhale. You can lower the leg. Extricate the right. Take a danda. So Dandasana, staff pose. And lift one heel up a millimeter. And exhale, come back down. And then the other leg up a millimeter. Hopefully that feels more intuitive. You can sort of wrap your brain around what's happening in the hip. Okay, great. So this is leading up to boat pose. So Navasana. I like starting this one with a strap because it can get you up in the air maybe a little bit further than you could otherwise. This is a balance practice. The feet can start on the floor and you're going to lift your lungs up toward the ceiling. Okay? You can squeeze your legs toward one another or together. Okay? You see how like my arms are away from my legs. So I have to kind of go sort of like ballet form. Shoulder blades out to the sides. Okay? And you're going to lift your lungs, 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 lift your lungs. And if it's available, you lift your heels just a millimeter off the floor. Now, I'm not using my strap for that, but if you'd like to, you could. So you can like pull your feet up. Okay? But we're not changing form. It's just a millimeter difference, but it has a big effect on the stabilizing aspect of this, because all of a sudden there's very little on the floor, right? So things have to engage. All right, and then you can place your heels down. So that's option number one, to alternate between heels down and heels up, heels down, heels up. If it's available, option number two, the heels are up the whole way like this. And see if you can keep on lifting, keep on lifting, keep on lifting. And it's almost like you're trying to lift your feet out of the strap. And if you can lay your strap down, you can go like that. Or if you're holding boat pose, can I do this today? If you're holding boat pose here, like Ubaya Padangushtasana, so from here, see if you can let go and hold the pose. All right, so try it. Let's see what kind of boat we have. All right, so I'll try option number two here. I'm holding the strap. Lifting lungs way up. Pressing the heels up. Now, even before you let go of the strap, it's like you're trying to lift your feet out of the strap. And my hope is that you feel that now the quads are engaged, the psoas are engaged, a whole bunch of things are engaged. And that way, when you let go, it doesn't catch you off guard. You can really just kind of freeze frame and let go. Now, as you freeze frame, don't freeze frame the breath. It's just the engagements. 2 more breaths here. Take a big inhale, big exhale, deep breath in. Okay, great. Exhale from there, release. Okay, so that was a lot of psoas work. Ton of psoas work. We're now gonna lie on the back. All right. Good. So from here, your feet are pressing into the floor, and we're gonna lift up into bridge pose. Yogi's choice on what the arms want to do. If you want to hold the sides of the mat and rock your shoulders underneath, you can do that. If you'd like to interlace your fingers underneath, you can do that as well. So we're here. This is a stability pose in upper body, because you can draw your shoulder blades into your ribs and open up the lung space. Breathe, 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 breathe. 2 more breaths here in our first bridge. And as you press your hips up, you actually get a stretch in your psoas. Press your feet down to lift your hips up. And one last breath here in bridge. Your arms can come out from underneath. Exhale, lower down. Drop your knees to one side, and then drop your knees to the other side. And let's come back to center. Again, we're going to lift up into bridge, and option number 1 is to stay in our bridge pose. Option number 2, if it feels okay, you can step your feet a little closer together, which means they're now bearing weight from a more centralized position. So shoulder blades squeeze into the back. And if it's available, you drive one foot through the floor and lift the other foot up just a millimeter. So it's like you don't change form, you change how you're structuring yourself. Okay, and then that foot comes down and now drives through the floor. And as you lift your other foot, notice that your shoulder blades have to work with this too. So it's just a millimeter in the foot, but the whole body has to change structure. 2 or 3 more breaths. Okay, and then you place that foot down, arms out of the way. Exhale, come to the floor. You can drop your knees to one side. Drop your knees to the other side. And come back to center. So that's option number 2. Option number 3 is Eka Pada Supta or Setu Bandhasana. So one-legged bridge where you lift. Your hips are up, arms come underneath like the last 2 postures. You can stay with 2 feet on the ground. You can step your feet together and just lift 1 foot up a millimeter. If you can find that structure after lifting your 1 foot up a millimeter, draw your knee toward you with your psoas and then press one heel up toward the ceiling as the other foot presses down. And then you place that foot on the floor, drive it through the floor, feel your structure change as you lift your other foot up a millimeter, and then you draw that knee in and then skyrocket the heel. Lift that top heel up another millimeter or so. And then you place both feet on the floor, arms out of the way, land on the ground. Knees to the left, sorry, you can step your feet a little wider, knees to the left, and knees to the right. Okay, great. So we did some millimeter with some forward folding essentially. We did that was back bend, and now we're gonna go straight down the core line with a couple plank postures, and I think we'll be done with the full body work here. So, in your plank, you're here, your forearm. I'll take a forearm plank today. because this is option number 1 for our headstand. Okay? And if it's available, you can stay here. If it's available, you can step your feet together and change nothing else about the pose, but you lift one set of toes up just a millimeter. And then you bring those toes down. And you lift the other set of toes a millimeter. And you bring those down. And then exhale, you take your knees down. Okay? So that's option number 1 for, we're going to do headstand next if you can do it, and feel free to take the wall space if you need to. I want to say that if you're rather comfortable in headstand, but the variation is going to be, you're going to press your forearms down and just lift your head a millimeter off the floor. That starts to feel a lot more like forearm balance, right? In fact, it is forearm balance, like we are on our forearms. So if you'd like to try that variation, but you're not comfortable doing it in the middle of the room, just set up against the wall, and it'll be there if you need it, okay? So headstand option number 2, you can lift up into a headstand, up against the wall if you need it. And if a headstand is not in your practice, you're just in your plank. In plank, you can stay there with both sets of toes on the ground, or if you'd like to lift one up for a couple breaths and then do the other one, you can do that. For your headstands, if it feels available, either A, drive your forearms through the floor and just take less weight into your head, or if it feels like your head can just lift up a millimeter, go ahead and do that. So that winds up being a lot more structure work for the shoulders. And then I put my head back on the floor. A couple breaths there. If you'd like to try it one more time. And plank people, we're almost done with the headstand. You're almost done with the plank. Yeah, so if you're in plank, you can lie on the floor, take a couple breaths. If you're in headstand, if you'd like to stay up a couple more breaths, you can, and then whenever you're ready, you'll lower down. For plank people, let's lie on the back. And after a few breaths, if you were in headstand, if you were in like child's pose or wherever you wanted to take, also meet up with us on the back. Okay. All right, so this was a pretty vigorous practice. I'd like to do one more small move, big effect for range of motion activation for the hips. You're going to step your feet fairly wide. And what I'd like you to do is to rock onto the inside of one foot. So I'm rocking onto the inside of my left foot. And I press my knee down. And then I exhale, come back. And then I try that on the other side. I rock onto the inside of my right foot. I press my right knee down. And then I exhale, come back. And that's option number 1. If that feels okay for your knee, keep on doing that. If it feels okay for your hip to press a knee down, so as you inhale, knee presses inward and down, and see if you can lift that same side foot up a millimeter. And then exhale, you come back, foot back on the ground, knee back to where it started. And same thing on the other side. Knee presses inward. You keep the knee pressing downward as you lift the same side foot up a millimeter, and then you exhale, come back to center. And you try that several times per side. So one knee drops in, you keep your knee in, try to lift your foot. A whole bunch of muscles have to do some weird things. And then exhale, you come back to center. Other knee drops in, rock onto the inside of the foot. And as your knee presses down, then you lift the foot up off the floor. Exhale, you come back to center. And go back and forth like this one more time per side. Great, and then from here, please step your feet together. So soles of feet are on the floor, and you're gonna take one knee out to the side, press that knee down, and then see if you can lift the same side foot. So we're going into external, it's the same cues, just in external rotation rather than internal rotation. So you're gonna press the knee out to the side, keep it down, see if you can lift the foot up toward the ceiling, just a millimeter, and then exhale, you arrive back to center. You go back and forth like this, another few times. So knee presses out to the side, foot lifts, exhale, come back to center. Do that a couple more times per side. Okay. Great. And then from there you come back to center. From here, please take your block underneath your hips. I usually take it either lowest level or medium level, and I go wide for this one. For a supported bridge, you're going to take the block underneath your sacrum, and then from here, right knee draws into chest, and extend your other heel forward along the floor. So we did a lot of work with the hips today. So I want one big stretch to counter all that work. Full thoracic abdominal breath from the bottom to the top as you inhale, and from the top down as you exhale. And if it's available, press your down heel, your left heel, forward another millimeter. See what that does to hips, through lower abdomen. There's another few breaths here. Okay. Great, and then from there you release your right foot on the floor. Let's switch sides. Please draw your left knee in. Give your knee a good hug. And slide your right heel forward. So left knee's hugging in. And notice what additional stretch you feel if you just move a millimeter. Right heel, one more millimeter forward. And that might change the expression of your entire right leg, right hip, right low back. Another couple breaths here. Okay, great. And then from here, please take your right foot on the floor. The last pose we were doing before Shavasana is either knees in or happy baby pose. You could do this on the block, either knees in or hold your feet in happy baby. If you can't get the block to work though, you can always lower your hips to the floor. So let's just say that wasn't working for me today. I'll remove the block and either knees in or take Ananda Balasana, happy baby pose. So allow your breath to get a little longer and a little more subtle. Another few breaths here. Very nice. So from there, you can place your feet on the floor. If you're still on the block, lift your hips, block out of the way, and place it by your side. Everyone's hips are on the ground. Extend your legs into a Shavasana for final relaxation. Okay. So we did a lot of activity today. A lot of activity. And whenever we're busy stabilizing, it's hard to kind of breathe. We can often confuse the dynamics of the breath with the stability of the body. But hopefully it got easier and easier for you to breathe into that structure, into the structure of your practice. So that now when you really relax, drop your bones down into the floor, the breath is almost effortless. It feels like almost nothing is happening. So allow your body to breathe for you. We did a lot of structural work with feet, trying to lift our heels, trying to lift our toes. Relax your feet. Allow the space behind each knee to widen and soften. Relax the webbing of your musculature around your hips. Feel your lower back widen and soften. The stabilizing work we did with our shoulders, shoulder blades, and shoulder joints. Allow the muscular webbing around your shoulders to soften, feel heavy. And feel the weight of your skull. Skull softens into floor. It's almost like your ears relax wider a millimeter. Your jaw relaxes wider. And your tongue relaxes wide. And while you're in this state of complete softness, relaxation, notice your body breathing for you. And it might feel like your breath movements are just a millimeter. So they're not that big. And notice your relaxed breathing, your tidal breathing. For the next minute or so, notice how small moves can have big results. Very good. So from here, notice your breath and start taking slightly longer inhales, slightly deeper exhales. Allow those millimeters to become centimeters as you take deeper inhales, deeper exhales. Guide a breath through your hips, down your legs like you're breathing into your feet. And then guide a breath through your shoulders, down your arms as if you're breathing into your palms. And finally, guide a breath up into your brain and exhale down your face. Great, and then from here, please draw one knee into your chest. Give your knee a good hug, sweep a breath across your low back. And then switch sides. Other knee draws in tightly. Give it a good hug as you sweep a breath across your low back. And from here, please draw both knees into chest. Inhale here, and then exhale. You roll over to one side and pause on your side. Notice how it feels to move after a brief period of stillness. And then from here, with as little effort as possible, come up to a comfortable seat. All right. Great. So you can relax your legs, relax your hips. And then notice very, very small movements like lift your kidneys up a millimeter, lift your lungs up a millimeter. It doesn't have to be a change in posture. It's almost just like a change in your energetics. So that your lungs feel light, so that the base of your skull is light, back of your brain light. Forebrain relaxed down, your executive function. All right. Well, thank you so much. Hopefully that was invigorating, appropriately taxing. It was actually kind of hard to demonstrate some of that and talk at the same time. That's sort of the point. It's work on the breath as best you can. Try your best, and I hope that was fun. Thank you so much. Take care. Namaste.